the brazier and the archer on the... Why with the German crap and room design? Hello, program people, D&D people. Welcome to another episode of Drunken and Dragons, where we play Dungeons and Dragons like big old badasses. Whew, this is how we do it. It's room 3 of episode 3 of our Underdark campaign. Welcome to Room Design. Alright, this is the Chamber of the Swordstone. Check it out, guys. This is the climax of our third night of PvE gameplay. Woo-wee! Look at this. This is just a bonanza of gameplay treats. Where to begin? Okay, well, let me just cover the setup for you first. If you can get a wide view. First of all, we had just come down the shattered stair, which you remember from the last video. So the characters are all haggard and beleaguered. Beleaguered and haggard. Working their way down here. Then they got line of sight in here and they noticed this giant Duergar with a massive anime-style buster sword guarding the front of this room. What is this room, you ask? Well, take a wider look. Let me tell you a little bit about our world. In ancient times, the dwarves built these structures like this, called the Swordstones. There are 4 of them. And when they are sort of rung, they kind of ring like a bell, they destroy all evil within like 100 miles. So what the dwarves did in ancient times is use these swordstones to make safe their kingdoms. This swordstone is currently inactive. And the Frozen King, who you guys have not seen yet and the players have only glimpsed, has placed his troops around these swordstones to keep adventurers from reactivating them. So if these are reactivated, his evil army is going to fall. So he is protecting the swordstone. So enter the players. Now the players don't know what this is. This is new to them. They're just trying to survive right now. They're trying to find a way out of the Underdark. So this is an insurmountable force to the players for the most part. My Duergar here is not just some average Duergar. This is a super powered up Duergar. And then we've got some skeletons all with double normal hit points. They also have this cool battle standard here. And any skeletons or Duergar fighting near the banner will continually heal. So, woo-wee, tough stuff, huh? Also, this skeleton guarding the swordstone right here, I gave him like a giant tower shield, which had an extra AC bonus on it. If you'll notice too, the ringing stone, as I like to call it, had this chain drooping down. And then I put this in here just for good measure. This is like healing bush. So if anybody does a perception check and succeeds, beats the room on the healing bush, they can grab a couple of healing herbs. Because I knew this room was going to be extremely difficult. Also, we've got an archer up here with good cover. So I had all these plans to make everything difficult for the players. Whew, wow, huh? So how did it go down? What happened? Well, our druid, having recently leveled up, had a spell ready, which I think is the Sphere of Darkness or Sphere of Concealment or whatever. It gives the whole party silence and a dex bonus on stealth checks, and they're all invisible and all this stuff. Wowzers! So the whole group hid inside the bubble and worked their way into the room like this. I think at one point the Duergar captain sort of noticed them, but then lost it, couldn't make the perception check. So eventually the party made their way back here in perfect stealth. And this is pretty much the first time our group has ever stealthed. So that was kind of exciting. Generally they kind of just go for it. I love seeing a group stealth because it shows they're really kind of scared, and that's awesome. So they came back, our rogue started investigating this chain. Twigs, our druid, got the healing herbs out of the bushes. Eventually the party started figuring out this is the only way we're really going to get access. They got up here. Meanwhile, they are still undetected. Absolutely crazy. So I think our rogue actually began to engage, and that's how it all began. So he's engaging this guy, and our wizard also climbed the chain. was getting ready to engage. And then we had our two stronger characters down here getting ready to pull this chain. Now, I don't think they had any idea what my design was. They just knew like, whoa, there's a big block on a chain. Maybe we should just pull this and we'll have a weapon, or maybe it's gonna do something. So as this fight is unfolding, this guy's killed. These guys are moving forward. They were revealed. So then the captain is making his way up. These guys are making their way up. And it's like, oh my God, rogue and wizard versus army. Not cool, bro. So the situation is escalating tremendously. These two finally made enough strength checks to pull down the ringing stone like that. This thing is made out of like pure silver. When it lands, it makes this massive bell ringing sound, and the sword stone begins to vibrate with like a huge tuning fork. So what I did is is there a D8 around here? I had one of my characters, we can just use this guy. I had our wizard put down a die with an 8 on it, and every time it was his turn, he clicked it down 1. So in 8 rounds, the sword stone would activate. So they didn't know it at the time, but all they had to do was survive those 8 rounds. Then I had another player, they hear these sounds of digging on the other side of the wall over here. So I had another player with another timer dice counting down. So wow, here, the battle is unfolding, the battle is unfolding. Milo figured out that if you stand on this little platform in front of the sword stone, it accelerates the timer. It's kind of like you're in front of it going, "Come forth, O sword stone." Then when it really got hairy, it got basically to this point, if I remember correctly. And we had this guy. It got to this point. He's swinging this massive sword, which goes up and aims and then drops for 2d12. Terrifying weapon. Then right when it seemed like hope was lost, or maybe it was just going to be really bad, the wall burst open and in comes a wagon pulled by a dwarven goat. And ladies and gentlemen, it's none other than Hankerin Fernale himself, burrowing his way through the Underdark with a freaking wagon. So he bursts into the scene, proclaims himself, and calls out the Duergar captain. Kind of comes scooting in like this, jumps out, and goes to engage. Distracts the Duergar, the timer finally gets to 0, and the sword stone activates, turning all of the enemies instantly to dust. Whoosh! Gone. So the Duergar's gone, the sword drops. Whoosh! They all vanish. Whoa. Boom! So the room is solved and we have reached a rest point. That was it. Now, wow, what's the follow-up on this? Oh wait, there was one more great thing that happened. If I remember correctly, this thing was carried up by a skeleton and was like lit on fire. Oh no, that's right. It was cast over like this, landed on the brazier and lit on fire and was destroyed. That was pretty hilarious. So they didn't get their heals anymore. So wow, Hankerin showed up in his wagon with his little keg and his trusty dwarven goat, Rocket, who is now friends with the group. And he described the situation. The Frozen King is trying to guard the sword stones. There's a plague infecting the Underdark, which has turned all the dwarves into Duergar. And actually Hankerin, in a desperate situation, has teamed up with the Drow elves to try to stop the Duergar infection. And he has to go fight. He'll meet the party later at the 4th sword stone to draw out the king and end this once and for all. But for now, he just gave him his wagon and his trusty goat, grabbed his gnomish jetpack, and went and shot off. So we will be meeting Hankerin later. But now the characters have this healing ale, the Blackroot ale. They have a wagon, because they're starting to accrue some junk gear. They have a dwarven goat. Now we have a druid who can shapeshift, so now she can become a dwarven goat, which is basically a goat with the stats of a mule. Not to split hairs or anything. And we're getting ready for the next chapter of our campaign. So woo! There it is, guys. So all the classic components. A timer, A lot of fail safes. Honestly, I thought this room would be a lot harder than it was, but the stealth techniques they used kind of kicked my butt as the DM. They're starting to clue into some of my tricks, and instead of actually playing the room like their characters would, they're starting to think like players, and they're sort of outthinking my rooms. So watch out, players. On night 4 of the Underdark, I'm gonna be switching my game up and making things a little more interesting. The room DC was 17, and that did make things hard, but in general, I just gave them too many options, I think. And generally, one thing you want to do with your players is really control space. Where can they move with ease, and where is it deadly? This room, you can kind of almost go anywhere. And the other thing that I really should have done here is my skeleton spawner. The fact that I only had 5 skeletons, they kind of just owned them, even though they had double hit points. If I had had a skeleton spawner, oh my god, this would have been a brutal room. So, now we're going into this exciting era. They took the giant dwarven magnetic sword, and they got their goat, and now they got a wagon, and off they go to the next chapter. So we've got a tunnel over here, which is going to lead out into the wilderness of the Underdark. So far we've kind of been in a dungeon area, which is, carved, hewn rooms. But beyond this tunnel, it's just the wilderness of the Underdark, which is like natural caverns and purple worm tunneling holes and umber hulk hives, and it's going to get crazy on the other side of that tunnel. That's all I can say. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm done yammering. I'm going to shut up now. See you next time. Double dingo with the salutes. Finger eyebrows.